Hey everybody, Jane here, and we are going to talk about my least favorite reads of 2024. Now, a couple caveats. The first one being sometimes people have different tastes. So if any of these books are your favorites, that please don't take it personally. These are books that in my personal experience I didn't enjoy. That doesn't mean you couldn't enjoy them. And if they're books that are on your TBR, don't let me sway you. Try them and see if they work for you because everybody's tastes are different. And there are times when my tastes are vastly different than the majority. I do have a couple on this list that I really think were not very well written objectively, but they're few and far between. And I think that there's an audience for every book. So including the ones that I didn't think were very well written, somebody else might really enjoy. The other thing I will say is these are books that I did not read as part of a bigger series. I was reading a lot of series last year, and there were some books that I felt like really didn't work within those series, but because it was like a book in the middle of a series, I didn't feel like pulling it out as like this is a problem in a series I otherwise like. I thought that would be too complicated to do. So these are just books that stand on their own and or in a couple cases like the beginning of a series or a standalone book that I didn't read the rest of the series. So these are not like ongoing series that I read and was like, yes, this book within the series was bad. All right. The first book on my list is a romance that just didn't quite work for me. It has tropes I love. It is a single dad and a single mom getting together. And that book was Show Me a Fake Fiance. This book, I just felt like it was kind of all over the place. It was one that I buddy read with a friend, and he liked it a lot more than I did. He really enjoyed it. It just, for me, was not as streamlined as I liked it to be. I didn't really vibe with the characters, and it just kind of didn't work. I think if you love the single parent tropes, and especially if you're not very, if you don't mind like a slower story, if you don't mind like a lot of stuff happening, I think it could really work for you. I didn't enjoy this one, guys. I didn't connect with the characters, but other people might. This one I have is also a romance, and it's also a single parent romance, which tend to be ones that I loved. But this one, also buddy read, also one that just didn't hit right for me. And that is A Sunday in Sweet Grove. For this book, the premise is that there is a man who is a single father, and his wife had died of cancer, I believe. And one of the things that she did before she died was asked her daughter to help her dad find a new wife because she didn't want her husband to be alone. And the daughter plays matchmaker with the dad with a girl who is a teacher, and I believe she is her Sunday school teacher. And so the girl kind of helps bring them together, and it has sweet and cute elements. For me and for a romance, there's a lot too much flashback of the wife and her sickness and the daughter, and just stuff that I felt like took away from the primary couple in this book. Also for me, the mom, before she died, assigning the daughter to help dad find a new wife was just a little bit icky. I think if you are, it also was religious romance that was a little bit too much for me. Y'all probably know I don't read a lot of religious romance. I picked this up as a buddy read because my friend wanted to read it, and it was a little too much for me. If you love religious romance, this could really work for you. Also, I would say if you don't mind the, daughter plays matchmaker trope, that might work for you also. I did not enjoy this one. I thought I would because I do, like I said, love a single dad, single mom romance. But this one just it wasn't quite hitting for me. The next book we have is a male-male romance called The Fake Dating Game. This is about a guy who, his mother and him used to watch the show that is like Supermarket Sweep. I don't remember what it's called in the book, but it's similar to Supermarket Sweep if you've ever watched that show. And his mother dies and he gets the chance to be on the show. Several years later. It's not like mom just died, he does the show. But this was really important to him and her, and he gets the opportunity to be on the show and be one of the contestants. Well, initially he asks his boyfriend, he's like, come be on the show with me. And his boyfriend's like, no, and breaks up with him. So he has to find like somebody else to go on the show with him as his like partner in a couple thing. So he starts fake dating this guy he meets. He checks into this hotel. He's having a real rough time. And the guy who works at the front desk, he meets and they start fake dating so that he can have somebody go on the show with him. This is a male-male romance written by a man. And I think for me, that's just not what I'm into. I've read a lot of male-male romances written by women, and I've enjoyed those. And I'm not saying like I would never read a male romance written by a man, but this for me had a little bit of an ick factor to it, just because of the way that the men were very much sexualizing each other in a way that didn't feel romantic. We didn't really get romance until the very end. It was a very sexualized thing into a place that made me feel very uncomfortable at times. And again, this isn't what I would typically read. I like more of an emotional connection, not just you're hot, let's do crazy stuff. And so I think this book really missed the mark for me. And I also, if I recall, and it's been a while, didn't like how the third act's breakup went. It just, there was a lot of things in this book that just didn't work for me. I don't think it's a bad book. And I think if you like male-male romance and you can handle it being much more about attraction and sexual things than it is about like a romantic connection, this might work for you. But I needed the romance before we got into the cucumbers. Yeah, there's a cucumber scene. I needed the romance first. The next book on this list, I debated whether I wanted to put this into the most disappointing or if I wanted to put this in the worst books. I decided to put it in the worst books because I think that's fair, but it was also a huge disappointment for me, and that is Artek. This is a alien romance. There is this girl who lives on this planet, and she is a shopkeeper, and there's these aliens who were, there's this group of aliens who were from, they were soldiers on another planet, I think, and they're here now, and they're very like damaged from the war, trying to recover, and the leader decides to marry the girl. He's kind of had a crush on her for a while. Also, I think this is supposed to be a retelling or it's supposed to be similar to Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, like the musical. I've only seen parts of the musical, but I got the impression that's what they were trying to do, but I didn't think it was done well. I thought the book was very underwritten. I thought it was very, I didn't think it worked well. I didn't think the characters were well developed enough. It's very short. And I really wanted Ice Planet Barbarians, and like I'd heard a couple people really like this, and I thought I would try it. And I liked the ideas, but I didn't think that the ideas were well done. So I was kind of disappointed because I wanted so much more from this book. And if you guys have recommendations for books that are Ice Planet Barbarian-esque, please put them in the comments below, because that's really a vibe I'm enjoying, and I'm almost out of Ice Planet books. So like I was hoping Artek would be the next Ice Planet Barbarians, and sadly not for me. I did love certain things about it. I loved how each of the guys was a different kind of alien, so there was a lot of different body types. I thought the friendship dynamics from the guys were good. Them being former soldiers was good. Some of like the traumas and issues were good, but overall the book kind of just let me down. And then the last book on my list is a book called Payback. This, unfortunately, was also a buddy read. I feel like my buddy reads this year have been a lot of misses. We had a couple hits, but a lot of misses. And again, like, my buddy read partner picked it, so it maybe isn't what I would have picked for myself. And maybe had I picked it, I would have felt differently about it, like, or picked a different book. Because I already knew this book was not necessarily going to be for me, but I thought I could enjoy it. This book is about a woman who has been in an abusive relationship, and she gets the strength to leave, and then something happens. Her car is stolen, and her young child, if I recall, is in the car and ends up dying from the situation. And she is very sure that it is the abusive ex-husband who orchestrated this whole thing. She is also at the time dating a police officer who is helping her like figure out the situation of, did her husband do it? You know, things like that. This book for me it had a lot of really cool ideas, but I didn't think that it did them well. So I had some issues with her relationship with the police officer, although overall he was a very sweet guy and I did like him. I thought some of her actions didn't make a lot of sense. I didn't necessarily think that she made choices that were believable in the situation. And overall, I just felt like this was a really great idea that was drawn out too much, and that was maybe even trying to tackle too many things. And it just ended up feeling convoluted and not really working for me. So yeah, this book was one of the ones I read this year that I think I gave it a 2, and I don't give 2s very often. It just did not at all work for me, and I was really bummed about it because I wanted to like it and I thought it was a cool idea. I will say, I think that the part of the book where she gets out of the relationship with her abuser was very good, and I appreciated like how strong of a character she is in parts of the book. And I really did enjoy following her as she's trying to build a new life for herself and her kids as she's getting away from this terrible abusive guy. I also feel like I needed more background on their relationship because from basically the get-go, he's terrible and a monster. And I kind of, I think, wanted to see like why she fell in love with him to begin with. Like, I feel like we just jump into, I'm married to a monster, but no background on why you married the monster. Like, how did he convince you that he was a good guy? Like, did he do a switcheroo? Like, what happened? So yeah, did not love that book. Didn't love any of these. But again, just because I didn't doesn't mean you won't. All right, guys, please let me know if you've read any of these, and if so, what you thought. Did you agree that they weren't great, or are they your favorite books? And it's totally okay and valid if they were. It just, they didn't work for me. That doesn't mean they won't work for you. All right, guys, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye. Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the